Hi, I'm Sheena.
And I'm Anna. You're watching Centrally Speaking.
Centrally Speaking is a program that opens up the conversation around important matters of economics and finance, matters of national importance that have an impact on your life.
Today we'll be talking about a very interesting topic. Sheena?
Yep.
What's your credit?
I'm postpaid.
Me not talk about digital and flow credit.
Oh.
Show off me. So we're actually talking about your credit score.
Right.
All right, so it's a topic that I don't think a lot of Jamaicans are familiar with. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because it is relatively new, the Credit Bureau. How do you think people are going to respond to a credit bureau?
Well, I think within the context of what the Credit Bureau is built for, is designed for, yes, you are right. It is pretty new to us as a society, as an economy, but it's a critical part of us ensuring that, persons are eligible to access credit. Yeah, and I think as we explore this discussion with our very special guest today, we'll learn a little bit more about why it is just so important to ensure that you maintain your credit.
All right, viewers, we're talking about the Jamaican Credit Bureau, probably similar to the American credit system with which you're familiar. But as Sheena said, we'll learn more when we talk to today's special guest.
What do you know about the Jamaica Credit Bureau?
I think it's a good implementation because you don't want to know about a person's previous payment history before you decide to actually give them another loan. So I think it's a good system and that Jamaicans should really adhere to the policy.
For the credit bureau, I don't know much about it, but it is very good that they can check on our background to see if we have outstanding loans and to see if we are really eligible for a loan.
It's good because you have people who borrow from loan company and them have the loan outstanding and then them go to next company and borrow the loan. While when you have the credit bureau, you can see that them have an outstanding loan and they won't mess up the other company like how they mess up the previous company and written a bankruptcy.
Well, I think it is a good idea to do background checks because you have to have some sort of proof that the persons can pay back their loans or anything that they have borrowed. There must be some sort of proof. So it's good to check their background because word of mouth is not always proof.
If you want to know if people are legitimate, then yes, you should check around to see whether or not they have outstanding loans. It's business.
Might as well, if you have borrowed a loan, just see them check if you have no outstanding money out there owing or if you can pay back for it. So I think it's a good thing.
Credit bureau system in Jamaica, basically to me, it has it good and it has it bad. I mean, for example, it keeps a track on people credit rating and allow them to access credit. As far as I see from a point of view, it doesn't make any sense a person with a bad credit rating go again and try to get credit. You understand? So everything else in one basic data bank about an individual credit will help the financial institution in extending credit. However, it has a drawbacks in that sometimes there might be some minor discrepancies on a personal account. We could be overlooked, but because of the rigidity in the system, it causes administrative costs that can cause delay in a person accessing loan and it impact the person's finances.
Jamaican people bright, you know.
I know, right?
We'll have more information on Jamaica's Credit Bureau right after these messages from the Bank of Jamaica. Many people have never heard about Jamaica's Credit Bureau. What is it and what it was designed to do and how you can use it to your advantage. We're fortunate to have with us Dr. Jide Lewis, Chief Prudential Officer at the Bank of Jamaica.
Dr. Lewis, welcome to Centrally Speaking.
Thank you so much for having me.
So the first question I have for you, Dr. Lewis, is your title big. Chief Prudential Officer. So what Prudential mean?
Well, Prudential has to basically do with just making sure that banks operate in a safe and sound manner. So Prudential has to do with everything that concerns their operations.
So like prudent.
Yes, making sure that they operate, in a safe and sound manner, essentially, yes.
All right.
So it's a big word, but it really doesn't mean anything more than just being a good supervisor and ensuring that depositors can be sure about their funds.
What is a credit bureau?
Okay, so a credit bureau is just a company that is authorized to collect information on borrowers' history. So if, Anna, you went 5 years ago and borrowed funds from a financial institution to, say, buy a car, that institution would send that information to a credit bureau who will collect and store it so that they can help others to make credit information.
So this is by law or this is voluntarily? They voluntarily send, or by law they have to send?
So, well, let us explain the regime. Under the Credit Reporting Act, which is the framework that allows for information sharing, you have credit information providers, which are banks, financial institutions, microcredit entities, even hire purchase companies are credit information providers. And under this law, these credit information providers can share their information with credit bureaus. It's not mandatory, but I think they see it as beneficial to their own businesses.
All right, so Dr. Lewis, you spoke about sharing of information. And we know Jamaican people are typically apprehensive of institutions that store their information. So share with us, how can the Jamaican public be assured that their information will be treated within the strictest of confidence?
That's a very good question, Sheena. I think we have to first realize that credit bureaus are supervised by the Bank of Jamaica.
Right.
They have a license, and part of that license gives them an obligation to ensure that they're storing personal information in a very secure manner. And that's part of their obligation for their license. Also, institutions that are authorized to get credit reports cannot get the credit reports unless they have the consent of the borrower. So that consent, when it is granted, will be shared with the financial institution, and that financial institution has an obligation to treat with it in a very confidential manner and use it only for the purpose for which it was shared.
And that is good to know. Now share with us, what is a credit report?
So a credit report is essentially a document that contains your history of your borrowing relationships with various creditors over a period of time, say 5 to 10 years. And so when you look at a credit report, what it's going to tell you is how much did you borrow, from whom did you borrow, and have you been paying that obligation on time, and have you been paying the amounts that you contracted to pay with that lender over the period of that borrowing relationship. So it's just like a report card.
Yeah. All right, so Dr. Lewis, in your previous response, you said that the borrower has to give consent before the credit institution can gain access to their history.
Yes.
All right, so what if I don't give that consent? Am I prevented from getting a loan?
Essentially, as you shop around for persons who can provide credit to you, they will have to make a decision around whether or not they will give you credit or therefore honor that loan application. They have to make a decision around what interest rate to charge you, how long to extend that credit for, and the various terms. So it suits you as a borrower to share and give them information that can make them make the best decision for you. You want them to have all the information so that the package that they prepare is good for you. Right? And the credit report is a part of that information set. So it's not all of the ingredients, but it's part of that ingredient that goes into ensuring that that financial institution, be it a bank, a credit union, even a hire purchase company, to know that, hey, you're a good customer, and they can actually extend that credit to you.
All right, so you're going to tell us about how the credit bureau works. I'm going to tell you how I understand it. You just tell me if it's correct. So
sure.
I go to a bank. I want a loan for a car. And so the bank says to me, all right, we can process your loan, but a part of the process is that we're going to access your credit report. And you give me something to sign to say I agree to share my report with Dr. Lewis, for example. And then when the bank gets that report, what is on it? Is it utilities? You know, if we did miss JPS 1 month, we miss flow 1 month, if we miss a previous car payment, what upon it?
No, exactly as you have said. If you had a borrowing relationship with just about any lender in Jamaica, be it a utility company, be it a bank, be it a hire purchase company like Courts, those records would be on that credit report. And essentially that financial institution would look through it and say, how have you been behaving in relation to those obligations? Because in some ways they're saying, if you're a good credit in the past, you're likely to be a good credit in the future.
Okay.
Now, we all make mistakes, so everything on your credit report may not be perfect.
Right.
But again, the decision is not so much only should I lend to you, Anna, or not. The decision that the financial institution is making is what interest rate should they lend you at, what period should that loan facility be extended for, and that institution now has a business decision to make.
I'm glad you said that people make mistakes, right? So is it that they consider a particular window? Really what I want to know is, after how long of you missing payments does that go to your report? So if I don't pay for 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, a year, what kind of time period?
Okay, so let's make a distinction between what is in the report and what information the financial institution will use to make their decision. They're two separate things. Now, the report will likely have information that can go back 5 to 10 years. It depends on the credit bureau and their databases. So there's a length of time that will be covered in that particular credit report. But in terms of the decision that the financial institution will use, or the decision they will make in terms of providing that loan to you, they are not bound by any rule. They can look at the last 2 years, the last 10 years. They can decide that you missing a utility bill is not such a big issue based on their own risk tolerance and their own experience. And they can decide that, okay, you made a payment, it was late, but it wasn't so late and it wasn't so frequent. So it really is a judgment call on the part of the financial institution. There's no hard and fast rule about what a good credit report looks like and a good or a bad credit report looks like.
Okay. And with that said, why do they exist? Why do credit reports exist?
So credit reports exist because a borrower has more information about themselves than a potential lender has. And so what would happen is, typically, if I'm a borrower and I have a borrowing relationship with one financial institution and then go to another, the new financial institution may not have all information about your history. So a credit bureau is authorized to collect that information. Now, bear in mind, the credit bureau does not need your consent to collect that information on your past borrowings from various creditors. What the consent comes only when a financial institution approaches the credit bureau and wants to access the information. That is where the customer's consent comes in. But having said that, it suits the person who wants to borrow to share that or give the consent, because as I said earlier, the more information they have about your borrowing history is the more informed a decision they can make. And so what you really want to create in Jamaica is an ecosystem where people with good credit collateral get access to good credit terms.
All right. So Dr. Lewis, Sheena mentioned it earlier that there's a general apprehension, especially in Jamaicans, about companies that have data on them. You know, is the credit report information contextualized? And this is what I mean. 2020, 2021, probably a bad year for most people. Most persons probably miss a couple payments, you know, so it shows up on the report. Does the borrower in front of the lender have an opportunity to explain, give reasons as to why was this so, why was this so?
There are two things I want to say about this. One is, as an ordinary citizen of Jamaica, you, under the Credit Reporting Act, can access your credit report each year for free. There are 3 licensed credit bureaus in Jamaica.
I'm glad you said that.
And those 3 credit bureaus have an obligation to share with you the information they have on you. So when you get that report, one of the first things you can do is just to make sure that the information in that report is accurate. Now, if you know you've had some periods where your payment has not been on time, or you have missed a couple payments, it is your opportunity when you meet with that financial institution, let's say the loans officer, you can explain that, and that can be documented as part of that decision. Remember, it's not a hard and fast rule about how the financial institution or the hire purchase company will use the information that's in this report. So that's the first thing I would say. Make sure you know what is in that credit report. Make sure you can explain to a potential lender something that may have happened in your past that may not look so good on your report, so they can take that into consideration. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a business decision that the lender has to make about whether or not to grant you credit and what terms to offer you as they grant you that credit.
You mentioned the 3. Do you know, are you able to share what those three institutions are?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
CRIF NM Credit Assure, Credit Information Services, and Credit Information Jamaica.
On our reels now, to the man in the street where I say, but Jamaica but a follow foreign for, and who have credit bureau and credit score. What that for? But then bring that to Jamaica for. How would you respond?
The response to that is that there's something in it for everyone. For the lender, they get to make an informed decision about whether to grant you credit and the terms for issuing that credit. For the borrower, what it means is that they can develop over time good credit collateral. And by credit collateral, I mean that if in the past you continually meet all your obligations on time and pay it in full, you can use that almost as a form of collateral to borrow against in the future. So good credit performance in the past is likely to be rewarded by further credit to you in the future.
Or lower interest rates on loans?
That is also possible. But what I would say to consumers is that you need to shop around. So if you go to one financial institution and they're saying the best rate that they can offer you is maybe 10%, and you have a good credit score, or a good credit report, you can go to another financial institution and leverage that and say, well, I know my credit report is a good credit report. I've gotten a quotation. Can you better this rate? And sometimes you're able to convince that lender that, hey, you are worth that reduced interest rate on your facility.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that information. So viewers, there you have it, the Chief Prudential Officer, Bank of Jamaica, Dr. Jide Lewis. Dr. Lewis, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
So it's now time for our fun facts.
The birth of modern credit reporting. The Credit Reporting Act may have been passed in Jamaica in 2010. However, the birth of modern consumer credit reporting happened as early as the 19th century. In England in 1826, the Society of Guardians for the Protection of Tradesmen Against Swindlers, Sharpers and Other Fraudulent Persons was established. Members received a monthly newsletter informing them of people who didn't pay their debts, and it was seen as a member's duty to share information to protect others from fraud. By 1857, the Society's name had evolved to Manchester Guardian Society, and it even had a data accuracy officer to ensure that information was reliable and not based on gossip. Around the same time, developments in credit reporting was happening in the USA. In 1864, in New York, R.G. Dunn & Company established an alphanumeric system to track the creditworthiness of companies. Tennessee grocer Guy Woolford put together a list of non-paying customers and sold them to other merchants. In 1899, Guy and his brother Cater founded the Retail Credit Company. The name of the company later changed to Equifax. Today, Equifax is the oldest credit agency in the United States.
Whether you're a smart farmer, street vendor, big investor, every entrepreneur, you got to wise up about your money. You have to make sure say your money secure. When you need to grow, you have access to more.
Financial inclusion means that individuals and businesses have access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet their needs.
Access to more money, more credit, whatever your business needs. When you work hard for your money must work for you.
So we had a great discussion with Dr. Lewis, but just in case you didn't quite get all that was said, here are today's Fast Facts. Whew. Number 1, simply put, a credit bureau is an agency that collects and keeps information on customers' credit history from entities that provide credit. Number 2, credit reporting agencies collect your transactional history from credit card companies, banks, mortgage companies, and other creditors. Number 3, this in-depth credit report is also used to calculate a 3-digit credit score. Number 4, credit reports tell lenders how likely you are to repay your loans, which help them decide whether or not to approve your loan request and how much to charge. That's the interest. And number 5, your credit score is made up of information about your borrowing history. Most of the information comes from your credit reports, so ensure that you keep that good credit. And that's it for today's Fast Facts.
that's it for today's program. Join us next week at the same time, right here on this station, when we'll have another special guest.
Remember to check out on social media, We're on Twitter at Central Bank JA, on Facebook, Central Bank JA, and watch our YouTube channel. And remember to visit our website, www.boj.org.jm.
She's Anna.
She's Sheena.
Thanks for watching. Centrally Speaking is a production of Bank of Jamaica.